Good afternoon and welcome back. Tom, thank you again for coming back and joining us. We got a couple other questions we'd like to kind of touch base with. I know you heard a lot of statistics. You gave us a lot of information of what you're going to do and how good you're going to do it. But yesterday, my wife spoke to someone that happened to be a school teacher. She's been in as a teacher for, I think, over 20 some years. She said the schools here in Lauderhill, that when I did research on these numbers, because I wanted to speak to you about it in person, but since I have you here, I'll grab you. The statistics are saying one teacher to every 23 kids. That's the numbers that they're producing. But actuality, the numbers that my wife heard and was spoken to her was 1 in 35. So with that number, let's say that's a correct number. With schools being looked at to be closed, now isn't that number going to jump even higher than that? 40, 42, 44? Whatever the number is going to be, it's going to be way up there. I mean, one teacher right now trying to teach a class of 23, if that was the actual number, but now hearing from a teacher who's in the school system, in a school here in Lauderhill, telling us that she's teaching 35 students. I mean, we got to take that as at face value. I mean, how do you guys, when you get elected to the board, how do you plan on facing this dilemma?
So that's a great question, Paul, and the teacher is right to raise that. It is really not a position of a strong school district to have that type of student to teacher ratio. It doesn't benefit the student, it doesn't benefit the teacher. There's the most pressing reason why that's happening is that we're seeing a shortage in teachers. Nobody wants to jump into the profession.
Of course not.
So that is driving that number to be higher. But to your point, once we start the downsizing and the potential closing of schools will be closing. We're gonna have to do that at some point. This is why when you start the process, you wanna have the right voices up there on that school board to ensure that when we start to downsize, we do it smartly. You know, when we saw a little bit of this in the Chicago school district had to go through a major reduction in schools. They had to do a bunch of closings. New York City had to do it right as well. When it came to that student-to-teacher ratio, I think New York City did it better, only because they had it stretched out over time. So it depends on how Broward wants to go around the amount of schools they're going to close and how many per year is going to drive a lot of that. So we're going to have to be very smart on how we actually do our school closing. That has to be a factor in what's going on. But to the larger question of why we can't recruit people into the teaching profession is something that we at the Broward School Board really have to take on. Personally, in my personal view, there are different areas that we as a district can start to market to pull in top talent.
Okay.
All right, we have to start thinking a little bit like a business and start understanding that we want talent people to come into the teaching profession.
Right.
We're gonna have to go to other industries and recruit them. And I think I know a couple places where we can find some of the great talent out there in the labor force and convince them to come on over to Broward. But that's gonna be my approach.
Okay, that sounds like a really great. But again, I know I'm sounding like I'm being a wet rag slapped against the wall. In New York City, I lived there. I raised my kids in New York City schools. I watched in the early 90s, 2000s, and even before that, when they closed schools down, they took kids from one community, bused them to another community, made that school now larger than it previous was, and now those kids, it went from one time, I remember back in New York City, teachers taught 15 kids, 18 kids. And even then, that was a lot. I watched them go from that number to 25, 27. Before my kids finished school, was 28, 29 kids per teacher. I mean, how do our children learn with those principles? Because at the end of the day, it's not the teacher not wanting to teach. It's the kids. You're going to always get 1 or 2 cut-ups, 3 cut-ups, who's going to be real
Yeah.
assholes in class, who don't want to learn, who don't want to do shit, who's going to disrupt the class. And if now you get 4 or 5 of those in a class of 30, how can this teacher now teach in her class? So, you guys as the board, you're going to have a very hell of a dilemma to reach and to figure out how to do this. I mean, it's a pain in the ass to keep saying the same thing to you because you're not there alone. You have one vote and one vote alone. But you being a parent, I said this to other people. Talking to you, I said the same thing to you. You're not just a politician, you're a parent. And as being such, you're going to take our problems as your own.
Yep. And what you're talking about here, again, it has to do with smart decision making and smart planning. You should know that in Broward right now, I wish I could tell you it's a little better, but we're in real trouble here in Broward. Because, for example, right now you just lost the superintendent. This is the third superintendent in 4 years. Actually, it should be 4 and 5. So every year you've gone through a new superintendent. Okay, that tells you that no one's really in charge. The staff has kind of gotten used to the last couple of years of just kind of doing things without that real, genuine leadership. And then if you add on to the fact that, wow, we just lost our last superintendent, bringing in a new one. This one's the least experienced of all the superintendents that we've had. Doesn't mean he's not a good guy. I actually think that we might have lucked out here when it came to him.
Let's hope so.
But what that means is that the staff, a bunch of the key staff that was there, all left too. So that means you're losing your top experience at the time when you need them most. This is the time, right here, right now, Broward. You have to. This election, you have 5 school board seats up for election. That's never happened before in the history of Broward. If we don't pick it right, the next 4 years can be an utter catastrophe for the entire county. So I encourage everybody, take a look at my campaign, take a look at everybody. Just get involved because we got to get this right. And the problems that we have, we're going to have to face with not a full staff up at the top of the house, with new leaders coming in, young, unexperienced leaders. You're going to have these teachers that are already on burnout. You already have overcrowding of schools. You're going to have to cut some schools. We have a tough road ahead, and I'm not going to lie about that. It's that serious. So you really got to be smart this election. This election goes in August. You really, all the parents that are out there, we're about to break out for the summer. We're wrapping up the school years. This is the time to talk to each other before you punch out for the summer, because this vote goes during your summer break. And right now, the people that created this mess are all trying to stay for their jobs. They're all running. So it's going to be an election that says you either keep what you have and the trajectory that we're on, or you vote in new business-minded people, a new direction. That's the name of our campaign. And you got to give, and if you want, you give us a chance. People like myself and other colleagues that are going to be jumping into this race to try to save our schools. We are literally in the save our schools mode.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom, for that answer. It was really in depth, and you definitely gave an insight on
what
we're thinking and what we're thinking, what we're unsure of, as well as you gave us some answers as to what you're going to do or what plans that you believe would be the right way in order to get us back on track.
Yes, sir.
And like you said, put us in a new direction. Thank you on that.
I want to say something real quick. It's not a question, it's a directive towards your direction. Just to say to everyone that's listening to us, everyone that listens to our podcast, we got to remind you one thing. Everyone tends to look at the president's election, looks at all the big elections, governor, this, that, and the third. They forget the little elections, the school boards, the mayor's race, the city council, the commissioner. People, these are the ones that get things done. You think once that president is elected, he gives a rat's ass about us? Let's be for real. This man here is going to listen to what the problem is and try to get it solved. The guy who's going to be in the mayor's seat is going to listen to the problems and get things solved. So get your asses out there this year. August is the primaries. Put your vote in. Let people know that we count and we're going to make them accountable. Let's stop sitting back and saying, oh, somebody else will do it. No. It's your turn. Get it done.
You know, Paul, on that, I would love to tell you, if you want, I'll even come back on the show and we can do a little vote by mail kind of thing and show everybody how to do it. Because my recommendation on what Paul is saying there to the audience is true. You can vote for whoever you want as president, but you know who's going to really determine your future? Really, it's going to be these local races. For example, most people are coming to Florida now for economic opportunity. We're having a lot of families come down. But you know what's going to happen to everyone who owns property out there? If they get this wrong with the schools, and it's already impacting us in a negative way, try selling your house at a top value. Even though the Florida market is high, it's going to degrade the attractiveness of your personal, and this is your personal income, your personal asset value. You want top schools in your areas to raise up your value. So if you don't even have kids in school, this matters. If you have kids in school, this is where you've decided to raise a family, because Florida, South Florida is the best place to be. Well, they need their future secured, and their future comes through top education. We can't keep giving our kids a less than adequate education. It's not right. And you're paying top dollar for it anyway. Right now, the budget in the school system is $6 billion. And yet they don't have the money to do anything correctly, not even pay our teachers. So there's a lot of mismanagement going on, a lot of no real direct leadership that Broward has gone through. We're a B district as a school. That means Miami and West Palm are doing better than us. Again, vote for whoever you want as president, but that's not the one that's going to directly impact your kids, directly impact your property values, directly impact your neighborhoods, and even the workforce that you're going to be hiring from are going to be our recent graduates at a K-12. This matters. This year's school board election is probably the most important school board election that Broward has faced, because there's 5 seats still up for grabs. So if you want to change the direction, this is it. This is the year to do it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Just